Whoosh, and we are back into it, ladies and gentlemen. Game 2 between Absolute Legends North America and TSM Evo is about to get underway. The picks and bans will be going down in just a little bit. And Sola, we were there for game number 1, and it was pretty much all TSM Evo. What do you expect out of these picks and bans coming from AL that are really going to have to change around in game number 2?
In that first game, it was all TSM Evo all the time. I think it was 18-1 in kills. They put on an absolute clinic and looked outstanding there. So what we were talking about between the games is thinking about whether Absolute Legends would look to maybe ban out some of those champions, whether they would look to ban out Ari or ban out Vlad. And so far, we haven't seen that coming out. So far, we've been seeing more or less the same bans that we saw in the first game. But there we go. There we have the Vladimir ban coming out from Absolute Legends. Not really a surprise. They got a thorough dose of Vladimir in that last game, and I'm not surprised at all. I wonder if we will see something like a first pick of Ari here as well, or something like that. It'd be very interesting. Usually teams don't first pick an AP because they like to counter pick in mid, but it would be one way to get another champ out of the hands of Salsi. So curious to see what they will end up doing here, and it looks like the first pick is going to be Jungle Nocturne.
It's very interesting. I thought perhaps they were going to do what TSM Evo did last game, where they ban out either Janna or Soraka, they ban out Alistar, and then pick the other support champion. Especially with that first pick, I thought AL was going to try to cap a Soraka pick here, but maybe they're not feeling it, although picking up a Nocturne as a first pick is never a bad idea either. I believe he was banned out last game, so now
Yes,
having access to him in game number 2 could be the little bit of a push that AL needs.
Other than that, the bans are almost identical from that last game. I believe the other 5 bans are exactly the same as what we saw from the teams in that last game. So Shen, Kennen, Urgot, Alistar, Janna banned the first game, banned in this game as well. It looks like we just swapped out Nocturne for Vladimir. And indeed, here we see TSM Evo doing really the same thing that we saw again. Once again, taking Alistar and Janna out of the pool, as we mentioned, and then going right back to Soraka and Ezreal. So we're going to see that same lane once again. So if Absolute Legends, we'll see what they choose to do here with their bottom lane, because they didn't have a lot of success with Graves and Taric in that first game. So we'll see if they'll pick something different here as a way of trying to counter Ezreal and Soraka.
It's going to have to be very interesting to see what they do with this. I know JPEG loves his Taric, but I think it's about time to give it up for something that might do a little bit better against that bottom lane combination from TSM Evo. And very interestingly enough, we have Kiko Me Please contemplating a Fiddlesticks pick here. I don't know necessarily how serious I'm going to take this one right here. Fiddlesticks, he could be played in the middle. We've seen him played by people like Voyboy in the top lane, but that was against a Vladimir pick, which they have been banned out right here. I don't think a jungle Fiddlesticks is nearly as viable as he used to be, but we have seen some teams playing a support Fiddlesticks, and even though they want to be a little aggressive in the bottom lane, I don't think that's necessarily the one they're going to be going with, especially with the Nunu being picked up here. Tristana Nunu could be a very, very powerful bottom lane.
Triss Nunu, that's very interesting. I'm kind of surprised to see that. That is a lane that offers, of course, the Blood Boil is going to be on Tristana nonstop. I'm just never a gigantic fan of Nunu. As a support player myself, he's not my favorite support. I know that he works with some champs. In particular, he's famous for being paired with Kog'Maw. That's something that Moscow 5 really popularized. With Tristana, I mean, it works to a certain extent. You can get some really crazy attack speed with Blood Boil along with Tristana's Rapid Fire. It's just, the thing about that lane is, again, they're not going to have any sustain in that lane. So if Aphromoo and Nat Nguyen can sit back and just poke them to death with that Essence Flux build we saw in the last match, it could be really tough going, because again, that's really what they've done, what TSM Evo's done with their picks here. By removing Alistar, by picking Soraka, they've really removed a lot of the strong sustain lanes in bottom. Again, Sona has been nerfed pretty heavily. Taric doesn't really heal that well. So they force Absolute Legends into picking sort of a little bit more of an aggressive support. And they, I mean, this is a lane that does work. I'm just not sure that it necessarily is going to be as strong as the lane that we've already seen from TSM Evo. So it can work out. It could work out just fine. But I think that they might find themselves once again getting sort of poked and prodded out of that lane in the same way that we saw it happen last game.
It could be very, very well that happens now, but I am just completely distracted by the fact that it seems Salsi is going to be playing Mordekaiser in the middle lane. You don't know how much that excites me right now. I am an absolute fan of Mordekaiser, although I don't necessarily know how his match is going to be in the middle, especially when AL has not picked up their AP character yet. Could be possible we see them taking that Ari pick after all, as Ari has a lot more mobility and can just kind of stay out of the range of Mordekaiser's kind of poke and prod. But we're going to have to see how they play against this one. I'm just really, really excited to see the Master of Metal being picked in a tournament again.
Mordekaiser is legitimately strong. The one reason why we don't see him getting played that much is just because he offers no crowd control, unlike most other APs. If he's able to farm, he can be devastatingly strong. So they need to really build the team around Mordekaiser and get a lot of crowd control on some other champs. They do have that from Maokai, as people are telling me in the chat that it's not Maokai, that it's Maokai. So they do have to build the rest of the team around that. I would expect some kind of a bruiser in top lane, or perhaps they'll go double AP. We'll see. But they do kind of need to work around Mordekaiser. Anyway, over on Absolute Legends, they picked Aurelia in top lane. That's a very nice, safe choice. It can work pretty well against a whole lot of different champions. It can work well against a bruiser in top, can work well against a number of different APs that could potentially be played in top. And then it looks like it's going to be Cassiopeia against Mordekaiser there in middle lane, a matchup that we used to see a lot more a couple months ago. Neither champ played quite as much now, but both very strong champions in their own right.
I do like the Cassiopeia pick against the Mordekaiser because her damage over time is really going to hit Mordekaiser where it hurts the most, in his shield. Of course, that shield is going to be taking away some of Mordekaiser's life every time he casts a spell, but as long as he hits things, the shield will be up. But Cassiopeia with the damage over time normally has a little bit of an edge against Mordekaiser. She could just eat away at the shield even just by poking once and then walking away, just sitting back and being content with farming up creeps at this. And the best part is she can stay out of the area of all of Mordekaiser's spells while doing this. But we do see TSM Evo picking up Lee Sin in that looks possibly a solo top Lee Sin against a solo top Aurelia. And we have seen Wings of Death playing Lee Sin a lot recently, especially if you watch him stream. He absolutely loves playing him in the top lane, especially with that little more sustainy build with him max the W. Now, some players may not actually agree with this one and go for a more of an attack damage kind of build, but if Lee Sin is going to be going up against Aurelia, who can just sit there and sustain herself all day with the Hitan strike, wouldn't be surprised to see Wings of Death matching her with that Safeguard Iron Will combo sustain.
That top lane is similar to what we've seen in a lot of these other matches. It's a lane that Lee Sin will dominate early on. Eventually, if she gets enough farm, Aurelia will pull ahead in that lane due to her natural sustain, as we mentioned a minute ago. Lee Sin will dominate that lane early on. So again, the thing that will come down to is, can Aurelia continue to farm in top lane against the sort of pressure that Lee Sin will put on early on, especially considering that he is that monolith champion. You can just keep spamming his skills over and over again without fear. Is Aurelia going to be able to sit up there and farm well enough for her very strong late game to take over? So that's really the question there. Now, again, one of the things that's similar to what we saw in the last game is TSM Evo is running a team that's very strong on sustain. They have Soraka in that bottom lane to keep Ezreal infused with mana to keep healing him. They're going to have Mordekaiser in middle lane, so if Mordekaiser is able to farm, if he can get that Hextech Revolver along with his shield, he's going to have a lot of sustain there. So once again, similar to what we said in the last game, if TSM Evo is able to go in and invade in the jungle and take away the blue buff from Absolute Legends and take that blue buff away from Cassiopeia, she's going to have a lot of trouble getting through the Mordekaiser's shield to deal actual damage and getting through Mordekaiser's sustain once he gets his Hextech Revolver. If Absolute Legends is able to hold on to that blue buff and they're actually able to continue feeding that to their mid champion, then they're going to have a lot more success, because that means Cass can spam away with all of her poison and she'll be able to actually start applying that damage over time to Mordekaiser. So again, a lot of it comes down to how well they can coordinate as a team, and based on what we saw in that first match, TSM Evo just did a better job of that. But it is a new match, it is a new day, and we'll be able to see if Absolute Legends is able to pull things together for this second match.
The thing was that TSM Evo only let Anivia have one blue buff, and I believe when Anivia had the blue buff anyway, they just wound up killing her in the middle lane. So they continue, like you said, the denial of resources onto ALNA, then it's going to be a very, very favorable matchup once again for TSM Evo. I think it's also going to be a little bit different now. Now that they have a Maokai pick on TSM Evo, and then Absolute Legends has the Nocturne. Nocturne is known for dealing a little bit more damage than Maokai does, especially with his physical attacks, and clearing the jungle at a little bit of a faster rate. So now that AL Josh has a faster clearing champion than he did last game in the jungle, TSM Evo's jungle invade tactics perhaps might not work as well on the jungler, even if they continue to deny the resources to the middle lane. Now that Absolute Legends has a little bit more of a different damage dealing jungler, they might be able to contest it a little bit better, but it's all going to really be up to see how Josh plays his Nocturne compared to his Maokai.
That's true. At the same time, Nocturne isn't like a Lee Sin jungle or like a Mundo jungle. He's not that strong early on. He does kind of need to get to 6 before he can really do that much, but he is a little bit less susceptible to being invaded. That's true. I do want to point out one other thing. If you look at these summoners that Sneaky Castro is running for Absolute Legends on Tristana right there, he is running the kill lane summoners, the heal ignite. What this means is they're going to be playing a very aggressive style in bottom lane. You don't take those summoners if you're looking to farm. You take them if you're looking to kill the enemy team's champion. Again, I just wonder though, with Aphromoo playing Ezreal, Ezreal is a nightmare against someone who wants to be playing for that kill style lane just because of his mobility and is the fact that he can sit back and poke. He is not really the champion you want to be up against if you're running that kind of kill lane. You want to see someone like Ashe, who doesn't really have any escapes and is more looking to farm the lane. So I can see what they're trying to do there. I'm just not sure that they're going to be able to pull it off. I just feel like TSM Evo has the stronger bottom lane based on what I'm seeing here. That doesn't guarantee anything. I mean, we know, we've seen anything can happen in these matches. It's just on paper, I really like the lineup in bottom much better for the team comp that TSM Evo has there.
And last game, they did have a hard crowd control in Tarek's Dazzle, and that really didn't merit them much more. Even though they had a Graves that could run in there and Buckshot, the Soraka sustain is just a little bit too much for them. So now that they have a champion that doesn't have that hard crowd control, instead has a slow replacing the hard stun, it's going to be a little bit even more of an interesting matchup. Tristana, of course, will be able to jump in there a little bit easier than Graves could, but she's also going to be putting herself in a lot of danger and leaving herself really exposed to a full combo of spells from Ezreal. And if one of those two champions gets silenced by Soraka, I think it's going to be a little bit more deadly than if a Tarek or a Graves were to get silenced from last game.
Right. Well, see, the champion that they'd really probably would like to have paired with Tristana is Alistar. Alistar has always been sort of a classic, we're going to kill you at level 2 sort of combination. But of course, Alistar's been banned out, so that limits the options on who Absolute Legends can pick there. If they wanted to go with a kill lane, I'm a little bit surprised that they didn't just try to go with something like Corki Leona, which is a very popular, sort of super aggressive. I'm actually kind of surprised we have not seen Corki picked or banned in either of these matches thus far, because he is very popular. But we are into the match right now, so we should probably talk less about who wasn't picked and who actually was picked right here. So we do see the items coming out. We have Cloth 5 start actually for both people in top lane, which is kind of rare. You actually don't see too many people doing the Cloth 5 all that often anymore, but it looks like we're going to see that in top lane.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting because that means that both these champions are probably going to go for a little bit more sustained build. They're just going to be taking even less damage when they're fighting against each other. So it's probably going to be a bit of a farm fest up there. We do see TSM Evo going for a little bit of an invade here, just poking and prodding, placing wards and placing saplings down in front of AL Naya right there in Cassiopeia. He did get a little bit of a harass down with the Q, but they're really not going to take too much damage from that at level 1. And they are just going to pull back and perhaps just go back into their own jungle here. Now AL, in the meantime, is going to be placing wards over at the enemy red buff area. Well, normally you see Maokai will be starting at these rates and then going towards a blue buff, so they could potentially be going for a steal on the blue, or maybe just keeping track of where Maokai is going to be in his jungle pattern. They are going to be falling back to their own wolves area. Nocturne seems he's going to be going for just a basic kind of jungle start. No real fancy moves from either team. We didn't see either one really going for an early jungle invade last game either. Both of them just kind of a little bit more about being on the defensive, protecting their junglers at level 1 than invading.
Yeah, both teams actually did end up warding the exact same spot, right next to the Wraith camp on the enemy team side. A very standard place to ward. I'm not surprised that we're not seeing any level 1 actions. Both of these teams have really terrible level 1 team fights. They're both very weak level 1, so both sides probably just going to go back, get their jungler off to a nice start, get them on that standard wolves to blue path. Just get them off to a fast start so they can start farming, because both of them not really junglers that clear super fast. I mean, they're both decent, but neither one is really, considered sort of a speedy jungle clear. So no need to go in there and risk stuff. Although we actually do see Wings of Death is going in and stealing away the double golems on the other side. So that's a little bit interesting. That's actually him putting the Cloth 5 pots to good use up there. That's why he goes and steals away the double golem, so he can just drink 2 of those health pots and he'll be back at full, and he'll have he'll be halfway to the next level. So that looks like that's why he actually went to Cloth 5. He wanted to do the double golems up there in top lane. So I have seen some other players do that. You see that very rarely, but those double golems will respawn by the time that Maokai gets up there. Presumably, I'm not exactly sure where Unstoppable. Oh, I guess Unstoppable is going to red because he didn't use his smite. Yeah, he's going to red because he didn't use his smite. But that means that Wings of Death is going to hit level 2 first, and that's going to give him an early laning advantage up there in top.
We do normally see this when an Olaf is going against a Warwick to really snowball the lane in Olaf's favor, because that means Olaf's going to be able to dive on him with Reckless Swings and Undertows before Warwick even has a second skill. So very surprising to see the tactic coming out from Lee Sin in a very passive kind of farm lane. This does mean he's going to force Aurelia back a little bit earlier. Doesn't necessarily bode well for the Maokai, who decided to go for his red buff and perhaps an early gank first, but this does mean that actually Wings of Death now 2 full levels ahead of Pico Me Please. Now 1 level, she's leveled up to 2, but still that's just a huge advantage for Lee Sin in the top lane, and now Aurelia's got to play a lot more passive than the passive farm lane that we thought it was going to be in order to kind of back off of this.
That's one of those things where you get to the lane and you see that you've each killed 2 or 3 minions. You're like, wait, how is he already level 2? That doesn't make any sense. And of course, it's because he went ahead and did the double golems. So far, biggest thing that's happened thus far, Unstoppable went in and he took away the wolves from Josh on Absolute Legends. So a really minor counter jungling, but he did go ahead and steal away a little buff right there. And other than that, it has mostly been just farming in each lane. Evo seems to be pushing towards the tower on each side, so that means that Absolute Legend is going to be a little bit safer from ganks right now. But that means that TSM Evo is slightly ahead in gold. Not really much of a difference thus far, but a very minor gold lead in these early stages.
We do see that Lee Sin just continuing to push towards the tower of Aurelia right here, even just being a little bit aggressive, just going in with that Safeguard Iron Will combo, shielding up against a tower hit, taking a little bit of damage on Aurelia, and then going back. Meanwhile, in the bottom lane, Ezreal and Soraka being a little aggressive, actually got JPack on Nunu down below half health right here. Nunu does not want to have to really spend a skill point on Consume. They are going to go in here. Tristana with the jump, trying to go in on Aphromoo. Saw that Soraka was warding, but Soraka got back to the lane just in time. A Summoner heal did go off from Tristana, though, so now she is down a couple of health potions, only one in her inventory, down a Summoner, and now Soraka actually being a little bit more aggressive. They're silencing and throwing those bananas. Tristana's taking a lot of damage.
Coming in, Tom.
We do see that. Yeah, meanwhile, Maokai's going to be going into the middle lane here. Naya's taking a lot of damage from between him and Mordekaiser. Salsi actually going down. Ignite goes down, but the tower shots will not be enough. The shield is a little bit too strong. Will save him from dying there. So that is first blood once again in favor of TSM Evo, and I believe they took first blood in the middle lane last game too.
It is. It's almost an exact repeat of what we saw in the last game. Unstoppable comes in. He came around to just to the sort of the back corner. Next to the middle player on Absolute Legends. This time he goes in with that Maokai Twisted Advance, and he's able to pick up the kill, along with Salsi, who just uses all of his skills, uses his Ignite, and picks up First Blood. So that is, once again, going to put TSM Evo in an advantageous position. Last time, they're able to snowball that middle lane into a really dominant position. So we'll see if they're able to do that here. We actually do have a gank coming in bottom lane, but it has been pinged by TSM Evo. So we'll see if this turns into anything. Doesn't look like it's going to right now, or we may actually see this counter gank because Salsi is starting to come down from middle lane as well. So we'll see if they're able to turn on Absolute Legends Josh or not here.
Yeah, I really don't know if Nocturne wants to really tower dive a Soraka and an Ezreal, both with the heal and the escapes that they have. He is going to be waiting here for a long time. We saw this being a little bit of a burden to AL last game. Josh kind of waiting in the bush for almost a full 2 minutes and did not get a successful gank off. He has actually walked out. They have been spotted. Naya's actually here from the mid lane too. Looks like heal was already popped there by Nat and went on himself. Hello, Cassiopeia's going to go in and take a lot of damage. We'll get the kill, but we'll die because of it. There's also going to be a kill picked up on Nocturne as both Maokai and Mordekaiser came in to sniff the gank out. A 3-for-1 in a little bit of a failed tower dive there for AL, and this is not the start they want to get off to in Game 2.
Tom, that was not worth it.
No. I think it's safe to say.
That's not what you want to do there. Again, as we mentioned before, TSM Evo all over that one. They knew that the gank was coming. It was spotted by a ward that they put down right next to Dragon, so they were aware of it. Their middle lane and their jungler came in. They counter-ganked that. It ends up being a 3-for-1. 2 kills now on Salsi in mid, 2 kills for Aphromoo in bottom lane. That is not what you want to do. It's going to snowball both of those solo lanes ahead. That's exactly who TSM Evo wants the kills to be going to. It's going to advance them in their build. It's going to give them a lot of extra gold, and it's going to put Absolute Legends in a very difficult position. So this is not the start that they wanted at all. And again, like you said a minute ago, Tom, the whole notion of, do you really want to dive Ezreal Soraka under their own tower at like the 6-minute mark? It's just a very questionable play there. It looked like they're trying to force something that just wasn't quite there, and it ended up backfiring. And we actually see Unstoppable and Salsi setting up to try to steal this blue buff away. Again, one of the things we talked about being a key thing in the match, in the pre-match discussion.
Yeah, they're going to continue taking jungle away. Not only that, but we saw Maokai taking rates away from Nocturne. So Nocturne already very far behind. He waited in the bush for an unsuccessful gank. Blue buff has now been stolen from either him or Cassiopeia, and Maokai just doing a really great job of counter jungling now that he has an advantage. 2 levels ahead of the enemy jungler, kind of like Lee Sin is a level ahead of the enemy top laner. Salsi in the mid lane, meanwhile, has, they're about the same level, but Salsi obviously with a lot more farm and a lot more kills under his belt. Actually down in a couple CS, but the 2 kills on Salsi, I think that's more enough than making up for like 5 or 6 CS there. So all the lanes on TSM Evo, once again, just continuing with an early advantage in this game.
Well, one of the things that we can do in Spectator is we can check the gold total, and Aphromoo is almost 600 gold ahead, so that's quite significant. That's a full Doran's item right now. So he's chosen to do that. He's chosen to go ahead and grab the phase right there. Again, the reason why you rush the phase on Ezreal is you want the ability to slow when you use either your Q or your W. So he has the chance to do that. Makes it very easy to chase. It also makes it easier for him actually to escape if somebody's chasing after him. So it's a little bit unconventional, but it does work on Ezreal. It wouldn't really work on a lot of other champions. And you see Aphromoo just poking away right there against a sneaky Castro. And again, anytime it looks like he's about to run out of mana, that's why he has Soraka right there to keep on infusing him and keep giving him endless mana over and over again. Wings of Death also went ahead and took TSM Evo's own red buff. Every time I look at that top lane, Aurelia is back huddling underneath her tower. Poor Kiko Me Please is not really having a fun time with this. So with that red buff in tow as well, it's just going to be that much more difficult. And meanwhile, in middle lane, whenever Salsi goes back, he's going to be able to pick up his Hex Tech, and then he's just going to be able to sustain in that middle lane. Even though he's slightly behind in creep score, as you said, he does have the 2 kills, and that more than makes up for it. In terms of the actual gold there in mid, he is about 300 gold ahead, which is not a huge amount, but it is enough to be significant at this point in time in the match.
And we did see that Maokai now coming around for the top lane to a gang after stealing the blue buff, immediately went to the his own side to pick up their blue buff. So there is no way that Nocturne or Cassiopeia could counter juggle and get that. Continuing to clear wards once again, Unstoppable picking up that very early Oracle's Elixir in this game, and he's just not on a point in this game where he's actually being focused or worried about dying right now. So he's just continuing to deny vision to Absolute Legends North America. So on top of this fact that they're counter juggling, they're roaming around and counter ganking basically on top of Absolute Legends. They're just denying vision too. So now AL is going to have to play super defensive, and we just saw this exact thing last time.
Fight going on in bottom, Tom.
We do see actually, yes, bottom lane. As we're looking at the wards being cleared out here, it looks like Sneaky Cross is getting extremely low. A flash kill from Nat Nguyen's Soraka, and we saw that at the end of last game, but now it's the beginning of game number 2 when Soraka is still taking down Absolute Legends Sola.
Well, when you see the chance to get that Soraka kill, you got to go for it. It's not quite a banana kill, which is the ultimate insult, but it is still a kill nonetheless. Again, I was watching the lane before that happened. Again, what sets that up is TSM Evo doing exactly what they did in the last game, just sitting back. They're poking. They got Absolute Legends down to about half health, and then Aphromoo just used his Arcane Shift. He blinked in. He forced the fight. JPack actually did use his ult on Nunu. Didn't really do anything. He got silenced immediately by Nat Nguyen to cancel it, and from there on out, they're just able to finish off that fight with the Ignite on Aphromoo. We do have a gang coming out in top lane, though.
Yeah,
yes.
Nocturne popping that ultimate. At least it is just how we're going to flash away. No fear coming out from Josh because of that flash. And Wings of Death going to be okay, but Maokai comes in with a counter gank from the bush over there, lays down the ultimate. Looks like a kick from Wings of Death is going to knock Josh back even further into the lane. I don't think he's going to be in a very nice place there. And Unstoppable not only taking the kill, but taking the enemy red buff with him there. Mordekaiser, meanwhile, the mid lanes are going at it with one another. Saucy just not taking any damage, even waste the ultimate there from Nai as the rest of the team comes in. And Sulla, we saw exactly the same ganks going on last game at this point in time too. Bottom lane, though, there's a little bit of a turnaround there. Sneaky Castro getting his revenge on Nat Nguyen Soraka, picking up a kill there. They are not done chasing Cassiopeia yet. Cassiopeia extremely low, has popped almost all of her health potions, but one left in tow. I don't know if she's going to be able to get away from any of these guys. It is a sapling being tossed. It looks like Ezreal's not responding on the bottom lane, though. Wings of Death, though. Oh, there's the response from Ezreal. That is a very on-point ultimate as they completely take out Naya. And now Absolute Legends down 7 kills to 2. 3k gold disadvantage. No towers have been taken yet, but I think that might be the next target for TSM Evo.
That was one of the better chases I've seen in a while. Cue the Benny Hill music and everything, but
yes,
they run all completely across the map, and then Aphromoo just uses his True Shot Barrage to pick off the kill. That was pretty amazing. Anyway, Nat Nguyen getting caught by himself. Aphromoo, I believe, was back buying. He picked up a Brutalizer, and this is the one place, even when you're ahead, where you can get into danger in that bottom lane. If either the AD or the support goes back, and then the other one's in the lane by themselves, you got to play really carefully. I didn't see quite how that fight started. I'm assuming that Sneaky Castro just rocket jumped in and used his full burst combo and was able to get Nat Nguyen. So you do have to be careful. If one of the two of you backs in bottom lane, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble. I believe that was the case there. But really, elsewhere, all over the map right now, TSM Evo is really pulling out to the same lead as before. They're counter-jungling, they're stealing buffs, they've got the advantage in pretty much every single lane. Ezreal now has that Brutalizer, so he's got the armor penetration on his build as well. And they're probably, it looks like they're setting up for another fight at blue buff right now. Or no, actually, Unstoppables had to break off. So it looks like that's where the action's going to be right now.
Yeah, we do see Mordekaiser coming in from mid lane. I'm surprised that Lee Sin's not coming in from top. He did just do a really good job of forcing Aurelia out of lane, just really knocking her down. But actually, Josh is going to have to take that blue buff. No blue buff for Naya here, as they did want to take it before Maokai could come in and smite it, or Mordekaiser steal it. So now that Nocturne has the buff and Cassiopeia doesn't, you know, it's still a win for AL because they got the buff and TSM Evo did not steal it. But unfortunately, it did not go to the person they might have wanted to have that buff.
It's good that they got their own blue buff, but as you said, they really did want that on Naya's Cassiopeia. With him not having that blue, it makes it very difficult against a monolith caster like Mordekaiser, who can just sit and spam his skills over and over and over again. I do want to make one mention of what's going on up in top lane. We've noticed how Kiko Me Please, the Aurelia player, has been underneath his own tower over and over again throughout the game. What that's doing is it's allowing the other players on TSM Evo to invade, because Aurelia has to stay in lane, because otherwise she loses out on a tremendous amount of farm up there. So just by continuously pushing that lane up to the tower over and over again, Wings of Death is able to force Aurelia
bottom
to
lane,
stay
actually,
right
we
there.
do have a Nocturne ultimate going in after the Nunu ultimate. They are going to pick up a kill on that and win, but Ezreal is not going to go down without a fight. He will immediately take down Tristana as she jumped in there. Nocturne will be picking up a double kill, though. A flash comes out from JPack. That's just going to let Unstoppable's Twisted Advance follow him. Pops an ultimate down onto Nocturne and Nunu. Unstoppable might be in a little bit of a bad spot, but Salsi is going to come in from middle lane to really break up this fight. The tower is still up in bottom lane, so they really can't dive this one, but the Mordekaiser with the Siphon of Destruction and the ultimate, is it going to be enough? Children of the Grave ticking down on Nunu. 1 HP, 4 HP. It is another kill for Salsi out of that middle lane. Now the Nunu Ghost is just going to trot around happily, following his little master Mordekaiser there.
And they're probably going to use this advantage to potentially go and do Dragon, especially with that Oracle. We'll see if they go for it, because they can always have the Nunu Ghost tank it. Yep, they're going to, TSM Evo is going to use the Nunu Ghost to do the Dragon. So that ends up being a 2 for 2. It was a nice play by Absolute Legends. That's really what they want to do. They want to use the Nocturne ultimate into a Tristana rocket jump. They want to use that to get kills. It ends up being a 2 for 2 because Salsi is able to come down from mid and sort of clean up that last kill on Nunu. So actually the AD and the support both died for both teams down there in bottom lane. But because Evo is ahead elsewhere on the map, they're able to turn that into a Dragon, and of course because they also had the Mordekaiser Ghost on their side right there. So overall, a nice play from Absolute Legends, one of the better plays we've seen in this game, but not quite enough to pull them back ahead.
Wings of Death flirting with disaster a little bit up here. So he did get Equilibrium Strike in tower range. It brought him down to about half of his HP right there. Aurelia popping the ultimate now is going to be able to turn this one back onto him. And maybe a little aggression from Aurelia. That's kind of what she needs in this lane. But Lee Sin, with a Phage and Ninja Tabby to his name right now, is just not taking a lot of damage and able to sustain himself up very, very nice with that level 5 Safeguard Iron Will combo. Just leeching back all the HP he lost from his tower attack. And Equilibrium Strike does come out in a little bit more of an exchange. Even Ignite's going off, though. Wings of Death might have bitten a little bit more off than he could chew right here. Aurelia is going to go in with that one. Nocturne's in the bush, waiting in the wings too. Aurelia has to pop the flash. Fear comes down from Nocturne. Oh, but actually a little juke in the bush. Wings of Death will escape from that fear, and then using the Safeguard Iron Will to get away to a creep. That is actually very nice moves there by Lee Sin.
Some really nice jukes there by Wings of Death. It looked for sure like he was going to die there when Josh showed up, and he was just able to do that Lee Sin thing where he just jumps around from minion to minion, and all of a sudden he's clear and free on the other side of the minion wave. Anyway, there was also a little bit of an engage in bottom lane. Unstoppable came down and tried to gank that lane. He was not quite successful, able to use that Tristana rocket jump in order to escape. But again, Aphromoon, not win. Every time I look at these lanes, it looks as though TSM Evo is at the tower of the other team, always constantly pushing on there. And again, the sustain of that bottom lane is just forcing the Tristana player, Sneaky Castro, has had to go back to base once again to buy in order to heal up. And again, he's missing out on a good dozen minions here under that tower. And that's just really what we've been seeing over and over again here, and not just in this game, but in the last game as well. It seems to be how TSM Evo wants to play this. And they are actually ahead. All three of their solo champions are ahead in farm in all three lanes, and that's a good recipe for being ahead 5,000 global gold.
And the thing is, once again, Ezreal just continued to use the ultimate to farm. Like we said before, he's just not afraid of the enemy AD in that bottom lane. And then panning up top again, Winds of Death just continuing to apply the pressure onto Kiko Me Please. Unstoppable with an Oracle's Elixir still to his name. He's going to be waiting in this bush here. Kiko Me Please is probably going to try pushing up a little bit here. Actually going to go back. Does not want to take any more damage from Lee Sin. We saw Lee Sin going with about half health, and now he's almost at full. It's like he swapped life totals with Aurelia right there. Just how much aggression and sustain he has right now. And that's just a testament to, like we said, how far ahead each of these individual lanes are for TSM Evo.
The other thing that Evo is doing is they keep giving their red buff to Wings of Death, and that just makes him significantly stronger in top lane because he's able to keep slowing every time he uses his attack. So that's one thing that's really benefiting him, and one of the reasons why he's winning this top lane. They want to the red buff is just more useful on him than it is on anyone else, other than Ezreal. But Ezreal is on the other side of the map, and he doesn't really have time to go way up there to top.
Yeah, it definitely is. Meanwhile, speaking of Ezreal, he's just going back in the lane here with Soraka, trying to get a little aggressive on the Tristana, but a little Ice Ball is going to tear anything. Taking a quick look at the items, Ezreal, we already mentioned his Brutalizer, going for a Trinity Force first kind of build. Tristana, meanwhile, has picked up a BF Sword this game, so in a little bit better of a place, Sneaky Castro, than he was last game, where he was really significantly far behind in items. Now with a decent amount of farm and a kill and a couple assists to his name, he is going to have a little bit better of an item build. That is not going to stop Aphromoo and Nat1 from being aggressive, though. Going in on JPack, getting him below half health, now switching targets on to Sneaky Castro. Arcane Shift does come out. No tower right here. They're going to get Sneaky Castro extremely low. Has to rocket jump away, but it is not in time. Ezreal's auto attack will follow Tristana and pick up a kill. So even more aggression on the bottom lane on the part of Nafamu lets them get another kill as they are now up 10-4. Nocturne ultimate actually comes out onto Salty in the middle lane now. Naya got very low. There was a Mordekaiser ultimate on there as well. Mordekaiser is so tanky and sustaining right now with that Hextech revolver in addition to pieces of a Death Cap. Now Stopwell going to be coming from the jungle to a twisted advance down onto Maokai. Very surprisingly enough, they don't just hit that tower once or twice and knock it down. They take 4 or 5 shots while retreating instead. So Ezreal actually coming in from the bottom lane to clean up. Picks himself up a double kill. That was so quick and sneaky, I almost didn't catch it right there, Sala.
Ezreal, Aphromoo coming in on janitor duty, just comes in and sees that they're both low, and he just jumps in and picks up both kills, and that's going to mean not only that first tower, potentially the second one as well. Unstoppable has to be a little bit careful here, but it looks like he's going to be okay, and I think that they are. Nope, they're going to leave the tower up with just a little bit of health left. But again, Aphromoo, this build that he's doing is sort of, as we said before, a little bit of an unorthodox build, but that Essence Flux first build is just really wrecking that bottom lane. We've seen that whenever these two just seem to fight back and forth, Aphromoo just seems to come out on top. I mean, again, we did talk about this a little bit in the pre-match setup, but that Ezreal Soraka lane is just looking so strong right now, and with that Brutalizer, he just has a ton of armor penetration. It really makes the fight one-sided. They get all the extra armor from Soraka's heal, and then meanwhile, Ezreal is getting the armor penetration from that Brutalizer, so it really turns it into a one-sided fight. Add in all the mobility that Ezreal has as well, and it just makes it really difficult for Tristana. We saw in that last fight where Sneaky Castro ended up dying in bottom lane. He looked like he was okay. He didn't realize he had to rocket jump out until he was almost dead, and by then it was just too late. He couldn't get out of there. So we now have about a 9,000 gold lead for TSM Evo, and Dragon is about to respawn in any minute now, so I'm assuming that they're probably going to head down there as a team and look to consolidate their edge that much further. Salsi certainly is not afraid one bit to go in there and steal away those rates. Naya barely even breaking through the shield.
Ooh, there is an ultimate coming out from Cassiopeia, although there's a flash over the wall from Unstoppable. Salsi puts the ultimate down. That is going to keep his shield up a decent amount. Are they actually not going to get the kill on Cassiopeia? Cassiopeia will go in and take a kill on Salsi. Tristana does come up from the bottom lane here. Salsi will eventually pick up the kill with the ultimate onto Mordekaiser there, but eventually Tristan is going to come in and clean this up. So actually 2 kills for 1 in favor of Absolute Legends. And speaking of that Dragon being up right now, this could potentially be what AL needs to get themselves back into this game, but it looks like they're just going to leave it sit for now.
That's exactly what they needed, and they also cleared the Oracle off of Unstoppable. I'm a little surprised they're not choosing to go for that Dragon. I guess they're a little bit worried about that bottom lane, about Aphromoo and Nat Nguyen. They're afraid that they might end up that having taken the damage from that last fight, they might be in trouble. But absolutely what they needed in that particular lane right there, able to go 2 for 1. They're able to clear the Oracles. We actually do have that fight continuing in top lane. Wings of Death just diving after Kiko Me Please under the tower and able to get that kill. So again, the strength of Lee Sin right there. He's got that Bloodthirster right now, and I know that you do see builds sometimes on Lee Sin, but not that often. Just adding that raw damage up there and enough to just follow Kiko Me Please's Aurelia clear across top lane, even under the tower, and just pick up that kill. And he really didn't take that much damage either. He was still close to full health until the tower started shooting at him. So again, showing just how strong Wings of Death is up there in top lane as well.
Yeah, that Bloodthirster was actually an item he went back and bought all at once. He had about 3,000 gold in the bank. He's going to get a turret off of this one. TSM Evo, in the meantime, has started on Dragon. So they're taking a kill in the top lane, a kill in the middle lane. They lost 2 kills because of that, but they take a Dragon in addition to that tower. I think that's a what defines pretty much a fair trade. And now ahead 11,000 gold, 10,000 gold-ish. My math is not currently on point now. About 10,000 gold, 4 towers ahead, 14-6 right now. TSM Evo is still in a very commanding lead right here, but AL definitely in a better position than they were in the last game when they were behind this much. We're just going to have to see how they can play it from here. Maokai is going to try to twist advance onto JPack right here. He's going to be A-OK underneath tower right now, though Aphromoo and Nat Nguyen threatening to strike once again. Salsi's actually coming in from the middle lane here, following after Nocturne and Cassiopeia, but it just looks like, I don't know right now, TSM Evo might try to just poke them out at this tower right here. Ezreal does have a decent amount of poke, whereas no one on the enemy team really has as much to match it. Cassiopeia can kind of poke, Nocturne, you know, can poke every now and then, but it's just not the same kind of damage that Ezreal can really put out at this point. There's a Nocturne ultimate, though, going to be going down onto Nat Nguyen. He is going to flash to avoid the fear. Spell Shield actually absorbs the shot from Salsi. Oh, Cassiopeia ultimate hits 3 of them. Nunu is going to pop his ultimate. Salsi will take down Cassiopeia, but they're going to return and take down Mordekaiser. Maokai now out of the jungle, picks up a double kill on Nocturne and Tristana. Nat Nguyen, of course, carries Soraka, will finish off the fight and pick up a kill onto Nunu. Hikumi Please comes in from top lane. Lee Sin is not even here. He's just taking down that middle turret. Hikumi Please will be trying to chase down Unstoppable. Is he going to get the kill? Will net himself a kill, but die from it because of that. There's an ace coming out now. TSM Evo cleans up 5 for 2, and they are just going to push down that tower in the bottom lane, push down the tower in the mid lane, and Lee Sin hasn't even had to be in any of these fights for TSM Evo to be this far ahead right now.
No, he didn't have to be there. And again, that was a pretty good initiation by Absolute Legends. They got the Nocturne initiation, as you said. They got the Cassiopeia ult on either 2 or 3 members of TSM Evo. So it was a pretty good fight for them. They fought 5v4. They got a good initiation. It's just the problem is TSM Evo is just really far ahead. They were 10,000 gold ahead going into that fight. And that means even if you do get a good initiation, sometimes you lose the fight. The other thing that's a real issue is Aphromoo is just terrifying right now. He has a Trinity Force. He has a Brutalizer. He's going to get, I believe, a Bloodthirster when he comes back. There it is. Did pick up the Bloodthirster. He is so strong. He's by far the strongest champion in the game. He's about the top 11,000 gold. No one on Absolute Legends is much over 7,000 gold. The Sneaky Caster, their Triss player, is at 7,200, and that's against 11,000 on Aphromoo. He's absolutely terrifying right now. He has insane mobility. He deals amazing damage. He is the real problem in that last fight. They could just never manage to kill him. He was completely untouchable. Wings of Death is actually going in and harassing a little bit right now, but Ezreal is really the biggest problem right now for Absolute Legends.
And we are going to see Wings of Death try to pursue down onto AL Josh. They are going to come in here. Cassiopeia actually getting the twisted advantage down to her. Has to flash over the wall, but Lee Sin's going to chase right after. Not afraid of any towers in the mid lane. He did knock them down before. Will pick up a kill onto Cassiopeia. Twisted advantage now from Maokai onto Aurelia. Even though her passive will reduce the cryo control, it's still going to be enough to get her bursted down. Mordekaiser now with an Aurelia Ghost. That's kind of a scary ghost to have right now. So TSM Evo just going to take down this inhibitor right now. They have 5 up to AL's 3. AL's going to be in a very, very defensive position. Even going to go for this bottom inhibitor right now. The rest of AL has to heal up.
Tristana's still in bottom lane. Trist isn't even there. She was pushing that bottom lane tower, so very easy to get 2 inhibs off that.
Yeah, we do see they're going to twist the advance on the Tristana. Has to rocket jump into the fountain. I think with that Ghost tanking all the Nexus tower shots, the Nexus is now completely exposed. The Maokai ultimate even down, so they're not going to be taking any damage at all between him and Soraka with the constant heal. Nexus is completely exposed. AL trying to defend as much as possible, even knocking Ezreal away with that Buster shot, but it's not going to be enough. Saucy will pick up a kill on the Nocturne, killing Tristana while she's being healed up by the fountain. That is just how much damage Aphromoo can put out, but he will eventually fall to that Aurelia. Now 2 members to 3 in favor of TSM Evo. They are going to switch their focus down onto this Nexus, or are they? Saucy's actually going to be dealing a lot of damage to that Aurelia. Is not going to let her fall, though. She is going to get away into the fountain. Soraka now getting ignited. Not enough damage. Bananas being thrown at the Nexus, and I think that's going to be all they wrote right now. TSM Evo potentially taking a 2-0. They're just kind of fighting around with AL and A at the fountain right now. Hikumi Please will go in there, eventually take down Nat Nguyen. That is going to be a revenge for his fallen comrade, Sneaky Castro, from the bottom lane. Nocturne ultimate goes off, and they're just unfortunately delaying the inevitable at this point. Looks like Tristana will die while in fountain, but eventually the super minions will take down the Nexus and end the game in a 2-0 victory for TSM Evo over Absolute Legends North America.
That one took a little bit longer for TSM Evo to pull ahead, but when they did, it was just as dominant as that last game, and they really showed that they were the better team in this matchup. They just dominated that bottom lane. They dominated mid. They had great ganks. They dominated top. They were just, in a word, dominant. They won the map, won everywhere on the map, and I think they were very deserved winners of this particular best of 3 series.
Yeah, as we continue to talk about from last game and afterwards, even the champion select of this game, that TSM Evo, just as long as they could continue to dominate their lanes, it didn't really matter what the matchup was. Top lane looked like it was going to be a huge farm fest, but Lee Sin, getting that early advantage, taking those double golems, was able to ride it all the way through to the rest of the game, and he had about a 3k gold advantage on Aurelia in the top lane because of that. We noticed that Mordekaiser got his advantage in the middle lane after picking up first blood on Cassiopeia, and continued to ride that for the rest of the game with almost a 5k gold advantage over her. And then Aphromoo in the bottom lane was just super scary. The constant essence flux harassment that you pointed out during the champion select was just too much for the non-sustained bottom lane combination of Nunu and Tristana. They couldn't be as aggressive as they wanted to be, and they wound up falling behind because of this. And Aphromoo was just perfectly fine with it to farm himself up into a Trinity Force, a Brutalizer. He got an additional Zeal after that, a Bloodthirster, and a 9-2 record on the game.
It looked like Absolute Legends just never really had an answer for all that. They did have some nice plays from time to time, but whenever we looked at the map, they always seemed to be back against their towers. It just kind of felt like they were always on the back foot, to use the soccer term. They were never really dictating the action. It felt as though TSM Evo was sort of the one that was forcing the pace of events. They were the ones who were always in the jungle of Absolute Legends, not the other way around. And their lanes just had so much sustain between Soraka in bottom lane, Mordekaiser in middle, and then even Lee Sin up in top. They just it looked as though Absolute Legends could never force them out of lane. It was always the players on Absolute Legends who had to keep recalling at times they didn't want to and missing farm underneath their own towers. And then when we finally got into the team fighting phase, all those little gold advantages that had built up throughout the match finally got cashed in, and TSM Evo was just able to win those fights very decisively and win this game almost as quickly as the first one. I think the first one was 22 minutes. This one's 26 minutes. So very convincing wins, and I think we'll be seeing a lot more of TSM Evo if they can play like this.
I think they definitely will. They are going to be moving on to, I believe, what is the semifinals of the IPL5 League of Legends qualifiers. So they are going to be either facing the winner of Dignitas or Orbit. That game has yet to be decided yet. Unfortunately, Sulla, I think that is going to be it for us tonight. TSM with a nice 2-0 victory, or TSM Evo with a nice 2-0 victory over Absolute Legends North America. So I think that's going to be it. Anything else you wanted to point out before we wrap this one up?
I don't have a lot more to add. I want to thank everybody for watching. Hope that they enjoyed the broadcast tonight, and hope that they'll come back again to watch more of the qualifiers as we get on, finish up the quarterfinals and move on to the semifinals and ultimately the finals.
Yep, like we said, guys, stay tuned. I don't know when we're going to be doing the remaining quarterfinals match. After that's the semifinals, and after that, the finals. Someone's going to be qualified to go to IPL5. Going to be very soon. Hopefully you guys are as excited as we are. I know we're always going to be excited to cast these games, Sola.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, Tom.
All right, guys, we're going to see you out for the night, and thanks again for tuning in to IPL5 League of Legends Qualifier.